Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
This is Writers on Film, the only podcast dedicated to books on cinema. Hello everybody and welcome to Writers on Film. My name is John Bleasdale. I am a writer and film critic, and today I'm delighted to be joined by a fellow podcaster, actually sort of an inspiration for me when it comes to podcasting even, Mr. John Rain.
Hello, John.
Welcome to the podcast. John, your SmershPod is stood as an inspiration for a long time for me. I really enjoy it. I remember somebody recommending it and saying this is right up your street, and boy, were they right. You've also become the author of several books inspired by the podcast, ThunderBook, and which is the Bond one, which is probably most closely associated with the podcast, and two others you were telling me off mic.
Yeah, well, because I did James Bond for a while on the pod, and then I sort of switched tracks and did one about 80s action. And some of my publishers said, "Oh, I like 80s action, do one about that." So I did that. And that kind of coincided with a dark tea time of the soul of COVID. So writing that was pretty horrible. And then after that, I thought all good stories are a trilogy these days. So I thought I'd been thinking about how all the superhero films that came along before the MCU. I thought going from Superman the movie to Batman and Robin was like a nice window to not explore, but just like in terms of the way I do the podcast, just to pick some films that were, untainted pre-Marvel stuff.
And sort of entertainingly hit and miss enough so that you can sort of go through them and sort of play around with them and enjoy them.
Yeah, exactly. And there's quite a few of them are little franchises as well. So you've got a story continuing through them, or indeed, as you say, rise and fall, really. So, yeah.
I mean, I think that's one of the things that I really loved, because I've been a James Bond fan for donkey's years, since I saw the first sort of Roger Moore ones at the cinema and Sean Connery on television. But what I liked about your podcast was how they're not sacred in any way whatsoever. You're watching them with a fully aware of how naff they can be at exactly the same time. They're totally enjoyable.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I think because I'm British and so are you, I think our innate muscle is to, one time love something, but also laugh or point out things about it that are, slightly wrong. And I think James Bond, especially the Roger Moore era, is almost like a sort of, it's almost like exactly what they're for. They're really good, but also you can laugh at them, and they're well aware of that as well. So I just think that's the way Bond should be. That's the way we watch them as a race, as a people here in this country. So the fact that people have enjoyed that approach, that's really nice. I do hear a lot of people say that, not necessarily agree with what I say sometimes, but they agree with the approach of just not taking it too seriously.
Oh no, I absolutely disagree with you on many occasions, but that's kind of half the fun, isn't it? And that's and even when with your guests, you have that rapport of well, I don't like to use the word bants, because
Hmm.
I think there should be specially employed snipers taking people out who use that word.
Mm. Yeah.
But yeah, banter, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, I started it off just having people on that I knew or people that I hadn't met before that wanted to talk to. But I've sort of built this little family of people that are my go-tos now for certain subjects, and I really like that that's the way it's ended up landing. And yeah, I'm not particularly keen on the word banter. If ever I use it, it's usually tongue in cheek. But I think that's the way I just like the podcast to be fun and silly. But sometimes we have episodes that are very serious and analytical, and that's what I enjoy about it as well.
When you what was your first relationship with Bond? What's your sort of I was saying earlier that I think my first Bond on at the cinema was For Your Eyes Only. And
Mm.
I remember being really frothing at the mouth, furious that my cousins had been to see Moonraker. And I remember even
Hmm.
like having that childish argument that you sometimes have, where I said, "Well, actually, I've seen so many clips of Moonraker, I've kind of technically seen it anyway."
Right.
They weren't convinced, and I'm slightly embarrassed at my sort of 9-year-old self trying to get that one over on them.
I think my first experience is probably the same as most people's, is that it was on telly a lot when I was little, usually on a bank holiday or a Christmas or whatever. But my first vivid experience I remember of watching one was the snake bit from Live and Let Die when Roger's putting his aftershave on and reading his cigar and the snake's coming in. That's my first memory of it. But the first one I saw at the cinema was View to a Kill.
Which is one of the I was reading in your book and you were saying that this is not supposed to be a comedy, but it's the funniest Bond film ever.
By miles, yeah. But I think that's just like I think Roger's tenure is like one of those wines or sherries that you keep in you let it ferment, and I think the natural conclusion of Roger's tenure was that it would naturally become a comedy. So particularly as they started it off, like Live and Let Die is very serious, but obviously with very funny bits because of the Tom Mankiewicz influence, and because Diamonds Are Forever and Live and Let Die almost feel like brother and sister in terms of tone, but it's also quite hard and there's quite some horrible stuff in it. But if you over time, because it's Rog, it just becomes silly, and that's why I just have so much affection for him and his tenure.
Yeah, I always think there's I watched Diamonds Are Forever recently, and it's almost as if Diamonds Are Forever is more sort of Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker Rog. It's sort of
Mm,
going into it's genuinely silly and genuinely
yeah.
a comedy, and I mean it's got real slapstick in it. It's like Tiswas, the sort of
Mhm.
fire extinguishers being unleashed on sort of a James Hunt lookalike, and there's you know.
And the end is just like a slapstick thing with the crane and the pod. Yeah, it's very silly, but it's very weird because obviously it's a Sean film, but it's not a Sean film because he'd already left and came back, and the landscape had changed. But it feels like it should have been a Rog. I think if that would have been a Rog, as much as I like Sean, I think Diamonds Are Forever would be much more better appreciated. I love Diamonds Are Forever, by the way.
Mm.
But I think a lot of people would love it more if it was a Rog.
Yeah, I think it's grown in my estimation. I did you were talking about COVID earlier on. During COVID, I sort of did a Bond watch and sort of blogged and I think I might have taken them too seriously, perhaps because of the context. And I was like, these aren't even films. They're not even then, they don't even fulfill the basic criteria of films. And
Mm,
then recently rewatching them, I was sort of thinking, no, they do. It's just that they're just very daft at a certain
mm,
point. I do sort of see that they become Bond films, and that's just a totally different category of film. I mean, you
mm.
wouldn't get a Bruce Willis action film with a car chase and the use of sort of one of those penny whistles. What are they called? The sort of the
Swanee whistle.
swanny
Yeah.
whistle. That
Mm.
that's could only double taking pigeons could only happen in a Roger Moore Bond film.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they did try and do something like that in Tim, but they cut it out, which was his magic carpet escape. I don't know if you know about that in Living
No,
Daylights.
what happened?
When he's escaping on the rooftops in Tangiers after doing the assassination, there was a scene they shot where he gets on a rug and goes between telegraph lines from building to building. Because it's Bond, he gets on the rug and you have the shot of people down on the floor looking up. seeing Timothy Dalton on a rug, but it looks like he's flying, going over the rooftop. It's a very funny joke, but I think once you watch the film in totality, you're like, this doesn't belong in this film at all. But that's just the spirit of it, I think.
Does somebody see it and then look at a glass of wine they were about to drink,
Oh, I
pour it
wish.
away?
Because that guy got a trilogy, didn't he? He did that in. He was a oh God, what was he? He was like a production assistant or something. He works on the films, but he's in. Is it Spy Love Me? He does it on the beach. Moonraker, he does it with the pigeons when he sees the gondola, and then he does it in For Eyes Only when he skis over his lunch. Ah, yeah.
Yeah, that and interrupting weddings sort of became almost
Mm,
a key
mm,
motif.
yeah.
Um, what did you think? What did you think of the early Sean Connery Bonds? And what's your take on them? Because it feels very much to me like you're a Rog man.
I'm a Rog and Tim man, yeah.
Yeah.
And I do love Pierce as well. I like the Sean ones, but they're load bearing. I like them in a different way. It's almost like when you love a band. It's like the Beatles, actually, when the first few Beatles albums are incredibly different to the latter day ones, but
Mm,
you appreciate them in a different way. And without them, you wouldn't have the others. The sort of revolution that Bond goes through in his own way, much like the Beatles, but not obviously the same. Um, but they're very important, and some of them are much better than others, much the same way Rogers are. But I do find the first couple kind of difficult to revisit just because they don't know where they are yet. I think
mm.
Goldfinger all clicks into place. But the first couple are just sort of half sort of 50s spy thriller with the bit of the Bond fairy dust on top. When you get to Goldfinger, it's like a perfect the cake's finished in the oven, if you know what I mean. But I love them in different ways. But I'm very much a Rog. I love Tim's films, and I love one of Pierce's films is in my top five. I love Goldeneye. I think Goldeneye is a perfect Bond film.
I think that he really benefited as well from sort of Martin Campbell. I think Martin Campbell's direction
Mm,
on that and on Casino Royale both were
yeah.
sort of genuinely lifted the
Mm.
quality that I mean you don't generally think of Bond films being directed as such, but he's someone who
No,
definitely put a stamp on them.
I think they were a bit like the Marvel films are now. I think what
Mm,
they would do is go to a director and say, "We have all these action scenes already in the bag, basically. We've because their second unit used to basically be its own team.
mm.
And much the same way Marvel now, when they hire a director, they go, "We've designed all the action sequences already and probably CG'd them already. We just need you to sort of hold it together." So I think that was the old direction. But I don't know if it's necessarily still that now because the last few, which people liked, I wasn't so keen on, but the last few are more character focused than set pieces. The set pieces feel like a bit of a, oh, fine, we'll do a car chase, but let's get back to Bond being depressed.
Right. I mean,
Mm,
uh, with the exception of obviously of Casino Royale, which sort of really bangs with the action sequences as
mm.
well. I mean, one of my points of disagreement with you in the book and on the podcast was you definitely don't like Quantum of Solace, and I hold the I'm not sure if it would be a hill I would die on or anything like that, but I just think it's a little sort of it's a punk song of a Bond film for me. It's like 90 minutes. It doesn't make
Mm.
much sense, but when has that ever mattered? Um, and it just sort of never stops.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of don't like it, but I admire it in a way of what they were trying to do something different.
Mm,
But there's a lot of it that is up its own arse, and that's why I don't like it. There's the bit where he's like, "Have you ever killed anybody?" It's like,
mm.
just get in a fucking Lotus and go underwater. Just stop all this nonsense. But that's more of a me problem than the film. I think I didn't like the direction Daniel Craig. I assume it's him because they sort of, as he got more control over what was going on, they became more like that. I didn't like the way it was going in that thing, and in No Time to Die, it felt like because they knew as his last one, they could do a few more gadgety things and car chase things. But I think if he had his own way, it would all be, have you ever killed someone? Let's go and get in the shower and cry. So
Getting in, crying in the shower is sort of like listening to Coldplay. It's just
yeah,
something you don't ever want to do.
not in a Bond film. No,
No, no.
no.
God, yeah. The next one is going to be, and the theme song is going to be by Coldplay, and then
Yeah.
I'll just have to give up altogether. Where do
Well,
you? No,
hmm.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go on. I'm guessing it's probably linked.
Yeah, where do you think they're going to go now? They've, spoiler for No Time to Die. He dies.
I think they'll do what they usually do with Bond, and they just pretend nothing's happened. You
Mm,
know how he can walk out of one door as Connery and come in the other as Lazenby, and you don't go, hang on a minute. I think we're just gonna go. I think we're just gonna do the Men in Black and
yeah.
just carry on as if nothing's happened. That's what I'd do. If they're going to try and explain him coming back from the dead, that would be silly. But I imagine they'll recast M, they'll recast MI6, they'll recast Felix, all that sort of thing. I think we'll be from point zero, but I'm hoping they won't hold a flag up and say we're starting again, like they did in Casino Royale, because I just thought that was really pointless to do a reboot in, what was it, the 21st film,
Mm.
to suddenly go, we're starting again. It's like, why? You've got all this established canon that you're now having to ignore. And then by the time they got to Skyfall, they were like, here's the car from Goldfinger, and you're like, how's he got that? Um, but I'm hoping that going forward, I like the director. I like the universes he builds. I really enjoyed his Dune films. I really liked Prisoners. I really liked Arrival. I'm not sure how his dark sort of palette will work in the world of Bond. I'm guessing he'll probably get a DOP who might tone that up a bit. But I like him a lot. I know that he's a Bond nerd. He did an interview when No Time to Die, when he was promoting, I think Dune 2, or was it the first one? And he was going on about how much he loves Bond. Bond are his favorite films. So that
Mm.
stands him in good stead. However, when they asked him his favorite Bond film, he said Skyfall. So
Yeah.
that's not filled me with a great deal of hope. I think it will live and die on who they cast, because obviously that person will have some say. I'm hoping that they'll go to the, like that line in The Untouchables, if you don't want a rotten apple, go to the bottom of the barrel. I'm hoping that they'll get a newish actor who doesn't have a lot of sway and will be available to make a film every 2 years rather than one in every 6 or 7. So I'm hoping that we get that sort of access going forward, because I got really sick. I mean, Roger was Bond for what, 12 years? And he made, off the top of my head, how many he made? 6 or 7?
Mm. Yeah.
Maybe more. And Daniel Craig was Bond for nearly 20 years, and he made 5. So I'm hoping there'll be a bit more energy going into it. And I get it. I get that Eon were probably, by the time they were doing No Time to Die, especially having to deal with the whole COVID, it's coming out next week. No, it's coming out in 6 months business. I'm guessing they probably just ran out of energy, because they're both, Barbara's not, but Michael G. Wilson is an old man. And I know his son was sort of doing stuff as well, but I'm guessing they were just like, yeah, we've had enough. We've had enough. We've been doing this for nearly 60 years, or over 60 years, as it turned out. So I'm hoping there'll be some renewed energy. I like David Heyman. I think he's a good choice. I think the Potter films, your opinion on them varies, but I think they were handled very well. They kept the essence of they didn't Americanize it. They kept the identity of it. So that's a good thing, that, Bond won't become Lamborghinis in LA or something stupid. So we'll see. But I think we're on a good platform, but it will live and die on who they cast. Oh, and also I like that Stephen Knight's writing it. So you've got a British voice in there. So we'll see. I'm excited about what will happen, and I'm just bracing myself from who it will be, because if it's someone, there's a few names linked to a few of them, you're like, oh, okay, and then there's a couple you're like, oh God. So we'll see.
Yeah, there was a guy from Rosebush Pruning, which I saw previewed in Berlin, or premiered in Berlin, I should say. I forget his name
Hmm.
now. I think he might be Australian. I've got a feeling he's Australian. I'll tell you his name because otherwise it'll be
Is it a Lordy?
no, Jacob Elordi. Yeah, no, I mean he's another one, but I think I agree with you that I think he's someone who is already too powerful. and he'll want to
Mm.
do other things. Whereas I think you want someone who is Callum Turner. That's the guy.
Oh, is he Australian? Is he?
I think so. Yeah, I think it might be. He was
I think
asked
he.
during. Oh no, sorry, English actor.
Yeah, I thought he was English. Yeah.
English actor and 36 years old.
Always looks like he's looking directly into the sun, though. That's what annoys me about him.
Yeah, he's a
He's
little
like
bit.
this.
Yeah, exactly. He's
Mm.
got sort of squinty eyes. He's
I
very
tell you,
he's Zoolander, isn't he? He's very Zoolander.
mm, he is.
He's very Blue Steel.
My girlfriend really likes Rivals, right?
Hmm.
And she said to me, "Oh, you have to watch Rivals." So I watched Rivals, and then she kept saying to me, "The lad in that would be a great Bond." And I saw a picture of him, and I was like, "Eh." But then I watched Rivals, and I thought, "Hang on, I'm kind of on this train. What is his name?" He played Rupert Campbell Black in Rivals.
Oh, okay.
Let me find it.
Now I've got my phone up. I'm gonna.
Yeah. Oops,
Oh,
sorry,
Alex Hassel.
Alex Hassel. Now, in
Yeah.
photo form, you're a bit like, oh God, he looks like the sort of daily. Which paper was it? Was it the Daily Telegraph or Express? I can't remember. That ran the Bond cartoons in the
Mm.
50s. He looks like a classic cartoon profile.
He might be a little bit
Also,
might be a little bit old though, you know.
yeah, I was
He's
going to say,
45.
yeah, he's too old.
He's sort of knocking on
Okay.
the yeah, you've got to have someone who's at least I think early 30s or 30, ideally late 20s, 30, I think. I mean, it
I think
depends on
mid
how you
30s
want to
is their
go.
mid 30s traditionally the sweet spot.
Mm.
But Rog was 43 when he started.
Yeah, he was older than Sean. So it was
Yeah, I mean, but
which
to
was
be
a
fair,
bold move.
Roger was a freak of nature, though. If you see him in Moonraker, he's literally 50 years old, but he looks 40.
Yeah, yeah. And
Um,
Sean was 60 years old when he was 40 as well. You know,
yeah,
he
yeah.
looks
I mean,
really old in
these
Diamonds
lads
Are
all
Forever. And
he does. He's quite funny in that film. His weight fluctuates as well, which is nice and amusing, I find.
I
But yeah,
before
we could be all day going, is it going to be him? Is it going to be him? I don't know. But it would be interesting to see how they're going to pick. I'm guessing that once the June 3 dust has settled, we'll hear more because I'm guessing he's really busy with that at the moment. So, because
yeah.
Stephen Knight said that he's really excited about the script. That's good. That's usually good. But then I remember Danny Boyle being really excited about doing Night Home to Die, and that didn't turn out to be anything in the end. But we know why
Mm,
now, don't we? I think it's because he was like, "I'm not killing James Bond,"
mm.
and they were like, "Well, that's what we're doing." And he went, "Okay, bye."
Yeah, that is a little bit of a yeah, a deal breaker if you're not gonna
Mm.
if that's what I mean. This is the interesting thing about the new Bond is that it more than it being a change in the actor as well, as you've already said, it's a change in the production company really because Barbara Broccoli won't be involved, Michael Wilson won't be involved, and so it's
Yeah,
like what are Amazon going to do, and are Amazon going to do the Marvel thing and use the movie as a way of seeding TV shows and other sort of
I hope not.
extensions? Yeah, I think that would be disastrous.
Yeah, the universe just isn't that big. Who cares about what goes on at MI6? We're only going to see James Bond. I mean, the last few films have sort of shown that. Like, we tried to get this groovy gang thing going on with Moneypenny and Tanner all doing business. It's like, I don't care about these people. I just want to watch James Bond having doing fun things.
You see, if they'd done a sequel to Never Say Never Again, then you could have had Rowan Atkinson becoming Johnny
Oh,
English by the end of it.
yeah, that's a good idea.
The way you said that's a good idea made me think it wasn't a good idea.
No, no. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I mean, hmm. It's a fun idea. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way.
At the moment I'm working on a biography of Sean Connery. I'm writing a biography of Sean Connery, and at
Hmm.
the writing process, I'm up to Never Say Never Again,
Oh, right,
and
yeah.
I didn't realize that Len Dayton wrote one of the very early drafts with Sean Connery. They actually wrote
Yeah.
the script together.
Didn't one of them was going to be the next film? Was it Warhead? I think
Yeah,
the other script they were kicking around was going to be the sequel to Never Say Never Again.
yeah, they were called. There was one that they wrote together in the mid '70s, and it was called James Bond of the Secret Service.
That's it, yeah.
And Eon got stroppy because it sounded like On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So they
Mm.
decided that wasn't going to happen, and sicked the lawyers on them. Um, when you moved from James Bond and you moved into sort of 80s action stuff, I mean, I have a lot of obviously this is it's like being a duckling when you come out of the egg and the first thing you see is the thing that you're going to follow around and call mother. You know, that for me cinematically is stuff like Krull and the wild geese. Is that kind is I mean, I don't know what is that kind of why that this sort of era is interesting to you, or is it what, or is there something specific about the nature of the films?
I think it's just the era I grew up. So
Mm.
yeah, I was a video shop kid. I say it in the second book, but when we moved to a new area when I was 6, the video shop was literally on the a little cul-de-sac area I lived in, like a little village. And my parents, I don't know how, sort of got friendly with the owner and said to him, whatever, because I had a huge interest in film even then. They said to him, whatever he wants to rent out, he can. Which now the man would definitely have gone to prison if someone found out. But I was able to go in and just rent whatever I wanted. So I basically lived in there, and he'd give me all the posters when they were finished with, and he'd give me like the standees and everything.
Oh wow.
So I think it's just like it's a romantic era for me, if you like. It's a time where I was literally just consuming film, almost in a sort of industrial scale. So that whole era for me just speaks to who I am, really.
Who are your prime figures from that era that aren't necessarily? I mean, I think of the 80s as being Stallone and Schwarzenegger coming up a bit
Mm.
later. Um,
Mm.
but who are the ones what are the films that are maybe a little bit less well known? And
Oh, I don't know really because I literally just consumed so much, but I was definitely Stallone, Schwarzenegger. I'd watch anything with Harrison Ford in for obvious reasons.
yeah,
Christopher Reeve because I was a huge Superman fan as well. So it was just basically just consuming whatever there was. So all the direct-to-video films got a particular fondness for Canon because they were pumping out so much quality.
I
Um,
just watched a
uh,
Canon film last night, Sword of the
uh,
Valiant. Have you ever seen that?
oh yeah, the Connery one. Yeah, the Green Knight.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
for that reason
sort
precisely.
of.
It's
Mm.
so
Mm.
bad. I mean, it's awful.
Yeah, yeah, but it's probably filmed near a golf course. That's probably why Sean's in it. That was usually his thing, wasn't it? That's the reason he's in Time Bandits because it was near a golf course he was using. But yeah, they did a lot of. I think if they have just stuck to their guns, their thing was like make a film cheap, make money on it, which they did successfully quite a few times. Like Break-In was huge, but then they decided they were going to be big, and that was a mistake because they didn't have any quality control. But I've got a lot of affection for. I wrote a blog the other day about how Superman 4 is, a film that I have a great deal of love and affection for. I was 10 when that came out, and I was so excited. Sorry, my washing machine's in a spin if that's coming out.
No,
Um,
it's fine.
I was very, very excited about that. So I've got a lot of affection for the Canon logo, and also my local cinema was a Canon when they took it over. So I've got a great deal of affection for just that whole era, good or bad. It's just something that, particularly as you get older, like I'm 50 next year, so that whole era to me feels like beautifully preserved in aspic and rose tinted. But obviously, there's a lot of crap. Like you say, Sword of the Valiant's terrible. Connery did a lot of bad stuff, but he also had his renaissance where he did Oscar-winning things. And I particularly remember 1987. I remember being as a very good vintage year for film because you had The Untouchables and you had RoboCop and Predator, which I remember my brother and I rented RoboCop and Predator on the same night and watched them back to back. And my God, that's an evening that will live in infamy for me. It's just like a Christ, film's amazing. And like, it's never going to get any better than this. Like, I can't imagine two films ever beating these when I saw them. And you know what? Some ways I don't think they have. But it's just a very special era. And the 90s was good. There's a lot of good 90s films, but I think the 80s was certainly an era where, for me personally, it felt like anything was possible. There was a certain air of magic going on, and you know, I once thought about writing something about Spielberg just when Spielberg came along in 75 with Jaws. Obviously, the blockbuster thing came along, but then in the 80s, his name was attached or he directed so many films that dealt with like magic. I think there's something in that. And it's certainly, when the day comes where we have to say goodbye to Spielberg, it's going to be a really difficult one, but just because he was responsible for so much joy when I was growing up. And that's another reason why I'm quite sad about his output now, is that I find his films really hard to look at,
He's that
because they just look like
cinematographer.
horrible.
Yeah, he's got
Kaminsky, what he's called. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, Kaminsky from I think Schindler's List and Jurassic Park on. He's just used him for
No,
every
from
film.
Schindler's List and Private Ryan.
Private Ryan, right?
Jurassic Park's Cundy, yeah. And that's the thing, his early films that were such juggling, there's such a light, there's beautiful light going on, like Close Encounters, the scene with the light comes through the keyhole and the door opens. Jurassic Park's got the moments of looking through the amber. There's just such light there, but now they're so muted and sludgy, and it's really sad. It's just like, I don't know. It's like your favorite band suddenly finding a producer that's terrible, and they've released albums non-stop with him, and you're like, just make it stop. Just go back to what you used to do.
David Bowie deciding, I want to be with Tin Machine. I don't want to do albums on my own. I want to do
Forever.
albums as a band. For the rest
Yeah.
of my career. Yeah, the kazoo player has joined the band, and nobody can oust him.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know what you mean about Spielberg. It's definitely he's such an amazing sort of 70s filmmaker who used that sort of sensibility for popular entertainment. So you had
Yeah.
this, he brought it with him. And I agree with Tom Schoen, who wrote the book Blockbuster, that, there's a lot of this, it's the end of the 70s, the minute Star Wars and Jaws turn up. And it's like, no, it isn't. It's the middle of the 70s. And they're
Yeah.
still, and they're bringing that. And, Raiders of the Lost Ark looks amazing. It looks
Yeah.
gorgeous, and
Yeah. It really
sounds
does.
gorgeous. That John Williams music just
I mean, we
has
were
such an
so
effect.
lucky, I was talking about this the other day. We were so lucky in the Spielberg knew Williams from the sort of studio system and introduced him to Lucas. And we're so lucky that George Lucas had managed to surround himself with the best production design team. I think in film history, I can't think of another film, maybe apart from Blade Runner, that's so well designed in every aspect. In that the Stormtrooper Darth Vader design is just instantly iconic. And when you see the stormtroopers and then Darth Vader comes through that door, you're just hooked. It's just like, this is incredible. And then, things like even the logo, like Joe Johnston did the Empire Strikes Back logo. He designs Boba Fett. He's just surrounded by the best people, and they invent that system, the name of which escapes me, begins with the Z thing. The back projection model shooting
Mm.
system that basically was Hollywood for the next 15, 20 years. So yeah, we were blessed. We were blessed for that era. And I think that's something that I try to get across in some of the things I do and say, and that it was a very creative and exciting time to grow up.
Yeah, I mean, these days you could. Oh, God, I don't want to sound like two
No,
grandpas, but
no.
you do sort of. It is that thing that you do want to sort of say. You lose something when you gain something if technology. You make a big step forward in like, we can see dinosaurs now because we've got CGI,
Yeah.
and then, but also we're going to use CGI to do crowd scenes, so you're never going to see Gandhi again.
This is it. This is my problem, is that it should be like Lord of the Rings is a perfect example of how it should be used, in that it's used sparingly and there's a great deal of miniature work. There's a great deal of apart there's no puppets. Well, there's a few puppets, but I think it should be used like we use any other kind of technology. I don't agree with. I remember watching a thing about Superman Returns, and they did this whole thing about how exciting it was they were able to recreate the boat and the sea. And I thought, well, isn't it better to just film a boat on the ocean? But they were so excited about it. I just thought, why are we doing everything in a computer now? Why can't we just use it to flourish, to garnish stuff? And I think my brain just switches off now. Like I can guarantee you now that pretty much every film I'll go and see for the next few years, I'll get to the third act and I'll just switch off because it will just become 100% CG in some way or other. And my brain has this thing where I'm just like, this isn't real. And if you watch something like American Werewolf in London, which I always use as the autumn example, that transformation is 35, no, 45 years old now, and it still looks incredible. And it's never been bettered. And they've done all sorts of, they literally did it in Wolfman 100%.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you might not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
CG, and it looks bad a few years later, but 45 years and it stood the test of time. That should say everything you need to know about CG compared to practical.
Yeah. I mean, I always think about sort of the details of, I mean, I watch way too many films anyway, but when you look out of windows and there's a CG cityscape, or they're driving in a car and it's a CG landscape going by, and you think there's that scene where Al Pacino is picked up to be taken to the restaurant in The Godfather, and they're driving down and he's getting searched and it's night, and they've basically the way they're doing it is they've got two people with torches moving torches in the back to give this idea that they're driving through, and there's cars driving behind them and everything. And the minute you're told that, I think Francis Ford Coppola says it on the commentary or something, the minute you're told that, you go, oh yeah, I can see how they've done that now. But then the next time you watch it, you forget totally, because it works perfectly, because they're real lights in a even if it's in a fake car, and somehow that CGI just lacks the gravity and the oxygen of the real world.
Well, I watched that. Was it the Thursday Murder Club recently? There's a bit in that where they're in a car talking, and it's just like it's completely green screened. Like you can almost see the lines around them all. I just think, you lazy bastard, you couldn't even be bothered to use back projection, or even just like drive around the block,
just put it on the studio on blocks and get people to wiggle the car.
Do anything. It's just, I don't like the way that is. And you can have a whole separate conversation about where that's going in terms of AI and what's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years. But it feels like someone needs to put the brakes on at some point and just say, can we go back to compartmentalizing effects? Like we do miniatures for this, we do CGs for this, and it's just more of an industry rather than it just being 100 poor bastards with bayonets to the back of their neck working non-stop. Because you often see articles, people saying, oh, this CG is from 2001, why does it look better than now? And it's like, well, because that was the only CG that company was working on. Whereas now they're doing 10 Marvel films, 3 DC films, Dune, all these sort of things, and they're so stretched. It used to be that you'd have one effects house, and if you look in films now, there's like 12 sort of all stitched together. I know it wasn't always one, but now it feels like it's such a stretched industry, and the budgets are out of control now. Every film at least at the minimum 150 million, and it just doesn't feel sustainable. It feels like this bubble will burst at some point. And when it's got to the point now that they make a film. I saw this Project Hail Mary thing recently where they were like, and there's so much practical work in it, and it's like, but it's not, is it? Because when they say that now, what that means is they've done something on set, and then when they've done the effects, they've replaced it with computer graphics. But they have to say that because it makes them sound like it's almost like they're trying to say we're sustainable as an industry. But it just feels false. But yeah, I am just being grumpy.
Yeah, but I mean, we care about movies, and I think we want to see, you see a sort of ecosystem being destroyed while this is happening. And I was talking to, okay, get ready for the name drop, Brian De Palma a few years ago. He was talking about this, and he was talking about how previs works. and he was saying how essentially they send a fight scene or a chase scene or whatever, and they send it to a previs thing, and
Yeah.
they hit a key and send you back the previs that they did on the other five films that they've done this type of scene for. So you get the same thing happening. So in every superhero movie, you get the genuflected landing because that's what happened.
Mm,
Every
yeah.
post Matrix fight scene has the come hither beckoning of the
Mm,
finger at a certain point. And it's just that
yeah.
you just get a collection of well-worn cliches or new cliches just being born in front of your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the curse on modern films is the phrase Easter egg, and everything has to have, oh, that's a reference to that. And I'm just getting a bit bored of it. Like the come hither thing is supposed to be a little nod to Bruce Lee, isn't it? And it's just become this whole thing now. Yeah, I think we should just cancel everything and start again.
Yeah, why don't we have
Yeah.
a? I like the Lars von Trier, Thomas Wittenberg idea of having a dogma of let's
Yeah.
get let's just write out some rules and say, look, we're not going to
Yeah.
spend more than this money. We're not going to
Hmm.
use XYZ. We're not going to use CGI for anything other than if we can film it in camera, we're going to film it in camera.
And do
Oh,
the thing like, that they do with trees. Like for every Marvel film, we're going to fund 10 independent films
yeah.
just so the industry sustains itself. That would be nice.
Yeah, and also with actors, because you always have actors saying, one for me, one for the studio, and it seems like you're
Mm.
doing a lot for the studio, guys. When are you
Yeah.
gonna?
Yeah.
Or George Lucas always saying, "I really want to go back and make these experimental little art films." Well, you've
Mm.
got the money now. You've got the
Mm.
money and the time.
But he built a compound. That's more exciting.
Yeah,
I think I'd build a compound. That'd be fun.
but what's he got in the compound?
Well, Skywalker Sound, isn't it? He's got this whole sort of Wonka factory of film there,
Right,
where they
right.
do all the sound mixing. And for a while, I think ILM were there. They're not anymore. I think George Lucas is an interesting example because he was a bit like the Henry VIII of film in that when he couldn't get his own way, he quit the union and went out on his own and started producing films himself, which I think not a lot of people would do nowadays. So I'm hoping that I've been saying this for a while, but I'm hoping when the sort of smoke clears on Star Wars as a rule, people will look back on the last 20 years and go, God, we were really horrible to him. We were really horrible to him because we didn't like these films he made. He was a really important man, and a lot of things you like now would not be here without George Lucas. And I know what he did was effectively go, I like these films when I was little, I'm going to make them in a different way. But I think a lot of practices and things he's put in place along the way, the industry would not be the same without him. So I'm hoping there'll be a reappraisal of him at some point and go, actually, he was a really great man, a really important man. So anyway, that was just my thing about George Lucas.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I just think I just wish he'd make. I just wish he'd make a THX 1138, which is sort of like one of the things that he's
Mm.
always sort of said, "Oh, I'd like to get back to the basics." And
Yeah, I
it's a
get it
little,
though, because he was given what $2 billion. I
mm.
get it. I'm nearly 80. What am I going to do now?
I mean, it's a bit like Francis Ford Coppola selling his vinery to
Yeah.
make Megalopolis, and it's just like, why don't you just make like, some of your best films are your smallest films. The Conversation and
Mm.
Rumblefish are like
Yeah.
nice
Yeah.
little modest movies that are fantastic. You could
Captain
make
EO.
10 of them.
Yeah.
Yes. The
Yeah.
greats.
The great Captain EO. But I think Coppola is a sort of warning as well that, if you do come back after being away too long, you could accidentally make Megalopolis.
Mm,
So maybe there is a time where you're like, maybe again, George Lucas is smarter than all of us, and he's just gone, you know what? I don't think I've got the riz anymore. I don't think I can do it. I'm just gonna spend this. I'm gonna give half the money to charity, which I think is what he did.
mm.
And I'm gonna wander around walking like the Patterson Gimlin Bigfoot in the back of people's shots. That video of the man just doing a kind of, I'm here in San Francisco wandering around, and George Lucas just walks behind him like Bigfoot. It's really funny. I just think he's got the right idea, and if he wants to feel the buzz of filmmaking, he can just, I think next year's Star Wars is 50, isn't it? So
Right.
I'm sure he'll be wheeled out to. Mind you, they don't want him out in Star Wars things now because when I think The Force Awakens came out, he was basically going, "This is just generic rubbish." So they were like, "Yeah, right, George, go away now." So we'll probably hear a lot more from him next year. Maybe next year he'll announce THX 11382, except
Yeah.
Robert Duvall's dead now. Or they could bring him back with a computer.
Yeah, which will give us more reasons for shouting at clouds.
Yeah.
There was a
Yeah.
wonderful video talking about the Bigfoot sighting. There was a wonderful TMZ video of Benicio del Toro coming out of a restaurant once, and they were like, "Oh, Benicio, what are you doing?" And walking behind him or walking with him, and then suddenly scarpering was Terrence Malick, who hadn't been seen on camera for 20 years. And
Oh
it's
my
like,
God, yeah, he is a bit like Bigfoot, isn't he? Yeah,
TMZ didn't know who he was, so it was just like
of course.
Benicio, and he just like he's off.
Brilliant.
You idiots! He's a unicorn. Go and catch the unicorn. So, Hail Mary. I was told Hail Mary Project was good. Gonna have to. Well, it's.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. No.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, what sort of films are sort of exciting you at the moment? Is there anything that you sort of you go to the cinema and you're looking forward to? I mean, you said earlier the Denis Villeneuve June films you enjoyed.
I enjoyed them. My favorite films last year were all horror.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I didn't
Weapons is good.
like. I was really Weapons was my film of the year. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I was
amazing.
really looking forward to Superman because like my favorite film of all time is Superman the movie. So I was really looking forward to it being more because I didn't chime with the Snyder ones of being so dark, and so I was looking forward to what. But I didn't like the James Gunn Superman. I thought it was quite boring and
Mm,
not very exciting. But my film of the year was Weapons. I really enjoyed 28 Years Later as well.
mm,
I thought that was really good. And One Battle After Another, though it's one that's kind of difficult to watch at the moment. But I really, really enjoyed all the performances in it, like Dottore you mentioned. I thought he should have got the Oscar. I thought he was great. But then again, I was quite pleased Sean Penn got his because he was great. So it's difficult when you're nominated from the same film. But Weapons, I thought was really interesting. It felt like horror Magnolia, which I really enjoyed that. And he's doing Resident Evil next, so I'm interested to see how that turns out because I think he's a really interesting filmmaker. I really liked Barbarian as well.
yeah, me too.
Um,
I'm a bit upset that he's doing Resident Evil. I'd rather just can we just you're doing original stories. Can we just keep you doing original stories, please?
yeah, but maybe it's a one for them.
Maybe it is. Yeah, just as long as he doesn't get trapped in the and another for them and another for them.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think he'll have an interesting take on Resident Evil because I don't think he's an idiot.
Right,
I don't
right.
think it'll be. I don't think it'll be like Paul W.S. Anderson.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
who kind of who ended up doing lots of Alien versus Predator as well, didn't he? He did the
He
whole
did.
franchise.
He now just does films with his wife, and I kind of respect it. His Mila Jovanovic is his wife, or is it Mia or Mila? Anyway, they just non-stop. It's like they've got a little Ma and Pa industry where they just come out every year with a terrible film that will go straight to streaming. But they'll make their £1 million each, and that's nice. I'm pleased for them.
Yeah, I'm very happy for them. They should. I can
Mm.
imagine them on Mr. and Mrs. answering, winning Mr. and Mrs. Actually.
I think they would. I think they're a lovely couple. I think they would win Mr. and Mrs. Yeah.
Yeah. The one sort of genre that I miss quite a bit is comedy. I think the thing that horror has got right, the fan base, is they've really raised the profile of horror and they've made horror into something that is not only respectable but promoted and people are waiting for the films. Movie comedies just don't seem to. I was thinking about that this with the death of Rob Reiner, who made
Mm.
so many good, brilliant films generally, including great horror
Did.
film. But
Yeah.
but his comedies were so good, and I just think
Oh,
that cinematic comedy, is as rare as hen's teeth these days.
it is. And what a shame that Rob Reiner's last film was that terrible Spinal Tap film. What
Yeah,
a
yeah.
shame.
It was a DVD extra, wasn't it? It was
Oh my God, it
you know.
was, yeah. This could have been an email, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think comedy is just, I think personally, I think the Apatow verse kind of killed American comedy and that
Yeah.
they all became, you could just tell how many takes they've done like that Ghostbusters film as well. You can just tell this is probably take 65 and everyone's laughing, behind the camera still. And it's like they're having a lovely time, but it's not coming out on screen. Um, I don't know. We just, comedy in general, I think, is on its knees, especially in this country. The fact that America had to come in and give us $2 million a week to make SNL UK and they had to go to Sky to do it because no TV company here can afford to do comedy now, unless it's a panel show. Unless they do Taskmaster the movie, I don't think we're going to get anything really. Although I did read this morning that The Inbetweeners comeback is going to be a Netflix movie now.
Mm.
So that's that. But I think comedy's in a really sad place, ironically. And until you get like a kind of it'll take a breakout indie film to buck the trend. It'll take a Life of Brian, Shaun of the Dead, Superbad type thing. But at the moment, there's probably no money in it. I think the most comedy you see at the moment is going straight to streaming, or is a TV series in America, like a high profile thing like Shrinked or things like that. I guess the closest we've got at the moment is something like Slow Horses, which is again not really a comedy. There's been some good ones lately. Like I think Chair Company, the Tim Robinson, I'd like him to make a film. I think he's definitely the funniest man working at the moment. So I'm hoping he'll make a film at some point. But why would you when you can make the Chair Company? You can have this story stretched out over 6-7 hours. I think TV's probably eaten up all the comedies that would have been made into films, just because it's more attractive to make multi parts of a story than one film. And unfortunately, like we mentioned earlier, the Spinal Tap thing kind of showed that people don't want to see comedies anymore. And who's gonna make them? Because there's so many funny people, quote unquote, that are stuck in panel show hell at the moment.
Yeah, I left England 26 years ago, 26, 27 years ago. And I remember staying in to watch Have I Got News for You and thinking, oh, that's really funny. And then, off out to the pub or whatever. And then 26 years later, I come back to England and it's just wall to wall panel shows. And they're just, it is just so depressing. And you hear from people like Stuart Lee the idea that a lot of these comedians who are going on the panel shows take their writers with them and are being fed lines and whatnot because it's just showcasing their next tour. I mean, the good comedies that come out, I often find on streaming after they've been in the cinemas. So like Brian and Charles, I loved. I thought it was like genius piece of work. I loved Bottoms, but all of these things are
clip that.
Yeah, exactly.
Clip that you love Bottoms, yeah.
Yes. I'm so naive. Why would I say such a thing? Yeah, I do. I love Bottoms.
They're doing a ghosts film, aren't they? So that's something. That's something that's happening.
Yeah.
Just because that's been such a hit. But yeah, I mean, I personally, I wish Vic and Bob had made that film they were going to make 15, 20 years ago. But that's never going to happen now. So that's that. But yeah, it's just panel shows. Everybody I know who works in comedy is pretty much sustaining themselves from writing people's lines for panel shows or going to Edinburgh and coming back poorer, that sort of thing. But there's certainly there's no industry anymore here that there used to be. I know many people who used to work in comedy who now but are sort of, when the whales at the bottom of the sea and those zombie sharks turn up, they're basically reduced to doing things like that. So it's in a really sad place, which is really sad. But the wheel will turn. Hopefully, at some point, someone will realize that we do need, like, sketch comedy in particular, is something that's always been dismissed by TV companies as seen as too much of a risk and just not worth, because it's by its nature it's hit and miss. But I think it's really important, and it's a sort of comedy. It's a gym for comedy, and that people go to the sketches and they learn how to write, and they come out the other end stronger and better. But we sort of siphoned off that industry now in favor of writing jokes for Jimmy Carr, writing jokes for panel shows, and it's not an industry anymore. It's just sad.
Yeah, sketches are sort of embryonic characters and drama and
Mm.
one-liners are just, no, Jimmy Carr, no, he needs to stop. We need to
Or
stop him. What would you say then would be something you'd like to recommend our listeners for? This is the final question in terms of.
mm.
Sorry, let me rephrase that. Because this is Writers on Film, we often ask for a book recommendation. For something that you've read about films that you greatly enjoyed and you'd like other people to read.
Oh yeah. And oh God. Well, there's a few actually. There's a David Hughes film, Tales from Development Hell,
Oh yeah,
which I
he's good. He's
really,
been
really
on.
loved. He's great. That was a book I read so many times when it came out. I guess that was about 25 years ago, maybe. And a few of those have, I think a couple have sort of since gone to fruition. They actually have come out of hell, but that's a good one. There's one which name escapes me now. It's the book about Don Simpson.
Oh yes,
Uh,
the
and
sort of like the life and fast times of Don Simpson is the
yeah, it's
subtitle, but it's got a
so good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And also What Happened, the Art Linson book. That's really good. That details the Alec Baldwin meltdown for The Wild, was it called? No, not The Wild.
The
The one with
Edge.
Anthony Hopkins, The Edge. That's very funny.
High Concept, by the
And
way, was the Don
Icons.
Simpson book.
Yeah. I also recently read one which was horrible, called Fly By Night, which was about the Twilight Zone incident. I didn't know this when I got it, so I'll say it now as a warning. It's got horribly graphic pictures in it. I did not know that when I bought it, and I kind of
Oh
wish I
dear.
hadn't looked. So trigger warning if you don't want to see horribleness. But it's probably the best record of what happened that night. So that's quite a horrible one, but also quite interesting. Um,
How that hasn't been made into a Netflix documentary by now
mm,
is, I mean, I think they did a Hollywood Hell sort
they
of
did.
thing on
Yeah.
it, but it that could be a feature documentary, I think, because it's got all the, I mean, Spielberg was implicated in that as well, and
Yes, he was, and because he was producer on that sort of, but he wasn't obviously there and had nothing to do
mm,
with it.
mm,
And then subsequently, I think him and Landis never spoke again. But yeah, there's a lot of people who could have potentially got pulled down by that.
mm.
And it's amazing the film actually ended up coming out at all. But that's a really interesting book. Oh, and also the one Hit and Run about the Sony studio
Right.
buyout. That's really interesting as well. But Tales from Development Hell, he did another one as well, which name escapes me, which is sort of on a similar like. It's really interesting because there's so many. It's basically these are the films that could have happened, and some of them are really interesting, like the Schwarzenegger Crusade film. There was
With
also a
Paul
Schwarzenegger Planet of the
Verhoeven.
Apes. Yeah, exactly. So really recommend that. But yeah, there you go.
He also David did a greatest science fiction movies never made, which I think was a sort of sequel.
Mm.
And he's recently started publishing because he's got a sort of his own boutique sort of DVD, picking up
Yes.
films that have gone out of copyright and stuff.
Mm.
And he published Night Moves, the novel, and my novel. So there you go. I managed to
Well,
put in
there you go.
a little plug there for my own
Thank
novel.
you, David.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Um, Listen, John, what's
Mm.
your next project? Where can people find your work and what are you doing next?
I haven't really, in terms of writing, I've got nothing. I
Mm,
do the occasional thing here and there. Probably the next, I did something for a, a thing about Spider-Man that's coming out in the next few months. But nothing on the agenda at the moment. I think the last couple of books were really hard just because of the situations in my personal life and also COVID and stuff has kind of made me want to not want to do that again.
mm,
So nothing. I'm just plowing on with the podcast. I'm doing more SmershPod. I've got a Doctor Who podcast called A Wheezing Groaning Sound with a couple of comedy friends. And I do a YouTube show called The Snake Boys Show, which is a culture thing where we talk about things like, for instance, like our favorite actors that when they pop up, you love seeing them, things like that. But in terms of pure writing, nothing,
mm.
right?
Oh well, hopefully we can inspire you
I hope so.
to pick up the pen once more.
Mm.
Actors who I was in a screening of Nocturnal Animals in Venice, and
Mm.
it's not a great film. And then Michael Shannon turned up, and the entire audience applauded. He was just like, "Oh, here we are. We're going to get to see something good,"
Wonderful.
And
Yeah.
that's he's someone I will watch anything if he's in.
Yeah, he's great. But sometimes I feel sorry for him. Like when he was Zod, I just thought when he had to turn up in when he wasn't in Flash, was he? I think they just used his likeness, or he was just wearing a green screen suit, wasn't he? But yeah, he's great. He's a good one.
Who's your actor? Who's or one of your actors who you would put in that list?
Oh, Jared Harris is one I picked. I love Jared
Mm,
Harris. Chernobyl
mm.
and The Terror are just like I think works of genius and art that should be celebrated. So whatever Jared does, I usually watch him.
Yeah, the
Gary
the
Oldman as well.
the novel of the Terror as well is well
Mm,
worth a peek because
I have read
it's
that. Yeah.
super duper. Adrian Sibley did a really good documentary on Richard Harris, which Jared was worked with him on.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
also very good. Well,
Mm.
listen, John, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it, man.
Welcome.
And I really appreciate. Thank you also for SmershPod because it is
Oh,
constantly fun and constantly inspiring as well.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.